Thank you so much for staying with us on AM 120. Our discussion on the 10th National Assembly and matters arising continues this morning with our next guest, Mr. Badiju Kwadisumbo, a social commentator. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
It's a pleasure to be here again.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the processes. There was so much drama, and then the margin in the Senate. What does that translate to in the operations of the Senate?
For the drama, it's normal. It's politics. And the margin, we can't really...
Against?
Politics. We can't really make anything out of the margin for now because prior to the inauguration, there are so many intrigues that took place. There were times that insinuation was in favor of the candidate of the party, that's Akpabio. Then very close to the day, we were hearing a kind of switch to the other side. And that was what we had in mind till the day of the inauguration. But when the figures came out, 46-63, people were like, something had happened. So there was a kind of game change.
What kind of something do you think?
Still politics. For the governors to have gone down from their various states, that represents a kind of executive bullying on the part of the governor, and which is still politics anyway. And of course, the other camp tried to use money, and those on the side of the party decide to use influence in terms of their position to kind of let the senators-elect know that we're coming from our states. This is the position of the governor and the unit of the party, the branch of the party within the states, even from the opposition camp. You can't go against that position. They try everything they could to avert the repeat of the 2015 scenario, and that has become history now. They've had their way. For the 46 people, majority of them were paid for. It was an attempt by them to see whether they could scale through, but now they have to go to the real business why they were elected, which is legislation and appropriation, as well as oversight.
Already there have been, I wouldn't call it silent, there have been appeals to the leadership of the National Assembly as well as the executive not to witch hunt those who stood against the decision of the party. Is there any strong indication that could be a situation going forward?
Yeah, that would be a welcome development. I even like what happened. I saw Senator Yari going to hug Akpabio when he was announced as the Senate president. That's sportsmanship and a welcome development. That singular act would send a message down to those who had supported him that, okay, no rivalry, everybody had to be on the same page now.
No backlash because they stood against.
It was an attempt. Don't forget, what we saw was interference from two camps. The establishment and the party. Having attempted to stop the president at the primaries and also haven't failed at the general election. They looked at it, the man has taken over the executive. And of course, the judiciary is a no-go area. It is the legislative hands that can be hijacked to put him to check, to blackmail him and ensure that, well, if he wants to bring policy, don't bring the ones that will affect us. Now, that has now failed because any right-thinking person would want to really probe into why a Yari will contest for the Senate president.
Why not?
He is not qualified according to the laws.
According to the rules of the Senate.
Both the law and the rules. He's not qualified. So that's, for him to now come out with that kind of fiat, having that much backing, there's something behind it. It's not ordinary.
Were the rules changed to enable him run?
It wasn't changed. Don't forget, when he was nominated by Senator Elijah Abu of Adamawa State, there was a kind of pandemonium. So people were going to stand against the
Did they have to
the
do
nomination.
that? Because the clerk was there. So the clerk was there. Why
The
did
clerk was there to preside. He cannot dictate to the senators what
not
they will
dictate, but the rules. He is the clerk. He's like the in fact, he was the umpire. He had the rules to work with. So why didn't he apply the rules? He had the rules written, black and white.
I mentioned the establishment. You cannot rule out the possibility of the clerk being contacted and being asked to overlook that aspect and just allow the proceedings to go through.
Are they not stated in black and white?
They are. Don't forget when the Saraki home came up, there was this allegation of alteration on the eve of the elections. And of course, noise followed it. But what happened in the end? He has been elected, he has been elected. The senators will not want to embarrass the chamber, so they have to just allow it to pass. No, so that is what will
Allow
happen.
illegalities to pass.
Since it has been, they will take the altered one as the real.
I mean, let's talk about 2023. You are not qualified to run. The rules are there. The clerk of the Senate is the umpire, and he was there, presiding over illegality.
They go back to the Constitution and the clause that says any other law or rule that is at variance with the Constitution will be what? Talking about the supremacy of the Constitution. That, if adopted, would be a very valid defense for them. But if you go by the Senate rule, they will not be able to argue that out. So that's giving a kind of slight chance. And some other ones will have, okay, he may not have been in the Senate, but he has been twice in the House of Rep, so he has legislative experience.
Oh, yes, that's true.
So that's what they will say. But it will be a spite on someone like Orji Kalu, who have been in the Senate twice, former majority whip, or Anosita Isnaso, who has been there 3 times when a first-timer is being nominated. So that was the kind of thing that generated the initial outcry. But of course, they were able to just calm down since they know the figures they already have, that even if he's nominated, he's not going to win.
Let me ask you this, please. We have heard of interference from the executive branch. But we also saw the Northern Elders Forum hold a press conference. I saw Angu Abdullahi addressing the media and saying the executive should not interfere, that the executive should allow the National Assembly to elect its own officers. Yet they were backing a candidate and they had a position.
Angu Abdullahi is
how do we reconcile that?
Is a member of the establishment. When people like that talk, you know where they belong. You can also kind of imagine why they are saying what they are saying. So you don't really hold. It's just like a former president of us and just saying something, or the former military president, IBB. No, people like IBB will keep quiet, but they do a lot at the background so that people will not put their eyes on them. Don't forget the rope of the June 12 is still hanging on his neck. So those are the things that makes him to maybe convert his activity to a covert level in secrecy. And not what we even call interference is actually lobbying. And is allowed.
It's not a culture here yet.
It's part of democracy. And if we are copying the United States, then we shouldn't talk about it. So when we hear rubber stamp is a Nigerian concept, because that's part of the concept that were used to kind of stand against the process or to kind of criticize what the president and the party was trying to do. You don't expect a situation where Nancy Pelosi will be arguing with President Biden. You understand? When Obama was there was cordial relationship. But when Obama handed over to Trump, what happened? It was struggle between Trump and Pelosi. When an opposition is in charge of the chamber, you expect that. But the same party, it is an aberration for you to have a senator, the Senate of the same party arguing with the executive. The relationship is supposed to be cordial. Yes, they are supposed to play their own role of scrutinizing every policy of the government, because that is what they expected to do. But don't forget that there will be people who are called lobbyists that would operate within the environment of the chamber, trying to reach out, bringing the message of the executive, oh, this policy, this is the reason why we want to do it, we need your support. It is the right thing. But in Nigeria, we haven't gotten to that level yet. What we use to lobby is money. And the senators or the lawmakers are so used to it that anytime you are coming to speak to them, hey, what are you backing it up with? That is what will come next, which is a state that we need to depart from.
Yeah, Mr. Badejoko, at what point does cordial relationship, at what point does it become rubber stamp?
That's why I said rubber stamp.
Is it? I'm asking because we want to know, is there a difference?
When it becomes rubber stamp, when proper scrutiny is not observed. For instance, look at the 9th Assembly's last, what is it called now? Legislative Act, before the valedictory session. They approved a loan that was controversial. You understand? So such an approval is what we call rubber stamp, because public opinion was against it. And even they themselves would know that this approval will be wrong at that time, just 10 days to handing over. And if you're going to do the paperwork, there is no way the outgoing government would have been able to, because it's an approval to acquire the loan, not to even spend it. So there's no way they would have even done the procedure to acquire the loan before they leave office. That means it's going to be a decision for the incoming government. Why would you now work on it? You shall step it down and say, well, because of the time frame, no, that one will be a welcome development. So, but for that to have scaled through is an example of what we call rubber stamp.
Okay, so now if we look at the Senate 63-46, as well as the fact that, if we look at the National Assembly in general, it has been described as a rainbow National Assembly. Quite a number of other parties, have found their way into it. How does this, in your opinion, how do you see this affecting legislative business going forward? You see it?
I expect it to bring quality into the legislative procedure or the processes now, because of the cosmopolitan nature of the assembly now. About 8 different political parties are represented, though with 2 having significant numbers. But when you look at the House of Rep, for instance, the aggregate of the opposition is the majority. That is, which means that whatever will scale through the House would be least controversial, because the right thing would have been done. And going by what some of the Reps members said, there was more of a consensus in the election of the speaker. Mm-hmm. And what the opposition said was that they agreed to support the candidate of the party so that they would be able to hold them accountable when they are doing something wrong. That makes a bit of sense, unlike what happened in the Senate. You understand? So now that means that we should expect more of quality debates, proper scrutiny happening at the House of Rep. But unfortunately, approval of appointments is the sole responsibility of the Senate. And that is one of the areas that Nigerians are interested in, especially in the next couple of days. Who and who becomes the ministers? You understand? And they would be passing through the Senate. They will be screened by the Senate and not the joint session of the Assembly. Probably maybe to make it less rowdy. I wouldn't know why those who prepare the Constitution made it so. Because if you want to really do it and make it acceptable, it should really be the House of Rep, because that is what really reflect the true representation of our heterogeneous nature as a country. Just 3 senators per state. Even states where we have about 20 ethnic tribes will still be represented by 3 senators. But that is not the case in the House of Rep. You have more of equal representation. So if a minister of the Federal Republic should be screened, I expect a situation where it should be that House of Rep that will be doing the screening and not the Senate.
So what say you right now with regards to the approval?
I'm thinking aloud, so
yes,
that
we need you to think aloud.
We need
think
to,
forward.
so that we should be considering that as maybe the next amendment.
Are your hopes high with regards to those who eventually emerge?
If you want to look, I know their names will be forwarded by the president, and this president, going by his antecedents, hopes are high that he is not going to bring just anybody, you understand, to occupy those offices, because these are going to be cabinet members that would be sitting to take executive decisions at the level of the federal government. So it's not going to be business as usual. If you look at the 8 appointments he just made as advisors, they are all specialists in the areas they are to advise. That's a welcome development. And these are people with proven track records. We expect them to be to give quality advice in respect of the areas which they are supervising.
Okay, Mr. Mele, let's look at the National Assembly and the culture of lobbying, where we copied from, which is Capitol. The Capitol Washington is notorious for the impact of lobbyists and how they get things done. Recently, it was in the news that the former Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, is to be the managing partner of a lobbying company or institution associated with Washington, has just been incorporated in Nigeria. How will that impact the National Assembly, the Dome?
It's not something that I expect us to lose sleep over, because the company may have been incorporated here. They have not been contracted by the executive to do the lobbying work. The executive may look the other way and not show any interest in the company. Looking at the personality of Lai Mohammed, of course, he's an ally of the incumbent president. Forget about the role he played in the last administration. He is still an ally of the incumbent president. So perhaps he had a hand in all of it, perhaps not. So we can't really say until we begin to see relationship, engagements between the executive and the said company. That is when we can now begin to say, okay, fine. But lobbying is the way to go. It's much more better than using monetary influence. That is wastage, and it's unnecessary. It's even watering down the quality of our democracy. We need to evolve beyond this monetary thing, and we have to start from somewhere.
And if the face of lobbying is going to change, depending on the Washington experience, how will that change the face of things in the National Assembly?
Yeah, it means only those who are interested in the business of lawmaking will now be interested in the office. Those who are approaching it from the business side, you invest, you go recoup and make profits, those ones will know that this is a no-go area. You only live on your salary, and we wouldn't know what will happen in the next couple of days. Probably there will be a reduction in the salary, because if you want to go by what the president said about implementation of the Orosaye report, that may happen. But I wouldn't know how the executive, the legislator will now accept that. You understand? Because you have not seen anybody that will want to legislate himself out of existence or do things that would affect them personally. But if they are patriotic Nigerians who want to see things beyond them and are looking at the future, they are considering the democracy. Don't forget, the president in his statement said we should all join hands to really protect this democracy at all costs. And part of the protection coming from the legislative arm is doing the right thing and not just attaching a price tag to every proceeding which you are elected for that you want to carry out. That is wrong. And these are things that we should be departing from. After 24 years, we need to really be evolving now to the right thing. We have made a series of trials. We should try to be giving quality to governance so that the people, especially this, if there is a government that should do it, it's this one. because it's one of the most unpopular governments we've ever had in terms of election since 1999. You know, look at the margin.
Well, it is the government that's come into power with the least.
Yeah, that means they are not popular.
Voters.
Majority of people did not vote this government into power. Those who voted against the government were more than those who actually voted for the government. So that is enough reason for the government to do the right thing, to look into reforms and how to change the face of things and the way we carry out business of government. People want to see quality. That is what will attract their interest to the business of government. And those who have lost confidence in the electionary process, that is what will bring back their interest. And those who have not really been participating, that's what will make them to now be interested in getting involved.
You see this National Assembly as being one that can, really tackle the thorny areas that a lot of people had been expressing concern about over time in the past. I'm talking particularly about the restructuring debates now. A lot of people say, look, let's look to the National Assembly to cause there to be a rebalancing in this country. You think so?
Well, restructuring, so most people are not conscious that it's already ongoing.
In a sense.
In a sense. The only area where people would expect, and it would be a major one, is state policing or community policing, as the case may be. When that happened, that would conscientize people about the fact that restructuring has actually been ongoing. Before now, power was exclusive. Now, power is concurrent. Before now, rail is exclusive. It is concurrent. Now, so many other things have been brought to the concurrent list, means states have been empowered the more. Where me I'm concerned is the fact that we are not even looking in the direction of local governments. And the governors are behind that. And that is wickedness on their part. What you are enjoying, you are denying the next level from enjoying it. That should also be looked into. And it is the National Assembly that can do that. Left to the states, they will continue to work against it. Because the governors like the status quo, the way they dictate to the local governments, decide what happens at that level. And it is not possible for a man in Agodi to determine what the people in Kishi, in Ogbomoso, in Iseyin will all need at the same time. The local government is closer. Once they have autonomy, they know what the needs of the people are at that level, and they'll be able to do it to them.
The debate is that you cannot separate local governments from states, from the state governors. The governors are saying, look, they must continue to exert.
They are taking advantage of the law as it currently is. Once that is amended, that would go away. It's because of the way the law is at the moment. Grants that local government autonomy, then governors will keep quiet. They will focus on the state level. Why do we have denominations? Why do we have state roads? Why do we have local government roads? Do you understand? And if you look at the situation, all local government roads are in deplorable state right now because the states are not even seeing them, let alone think of how to fix. You understand? Primary health care is more of a local government affair. But you find the states wanting to, equip all the PHCs across the states. That is not possible. They will always focus at the city center. They will want to prioritize. And by the time you prioritize, that means you are favoring some and forgetting about some. So at the level of the National Assembly, this should be looked into. Likewise, state policing. The president met with the traditional rulers, asking them to be involved. But the thing is, what constitutional roles are the traditional rulers playing? What legal backing do they have? Would their involvement have? You understand? If they want to do something, would the local government chairman that is superior to them not tell them shut up? Or what if they have an idea and the state governor is not cooperating with that idea or does not believe in it? It's going to stamp it down. You understand? So these are things. It's not, it goes beyond just meeting them. You don't have powers to do certain things.
Again, it is expected that the National Assembly will embark on another round of attempt to, do something about the Constitution. And probably state police will...
Yeah, they have a standing committee headed by the Deputy Senate President.
And then the state police. But in all of this, one critical factor is the provision that takes care of sharing of, you know, the national resources. When all of these things are done, nobody's talking about, you know, fixing the sharing of the resources. That's done by Ramfac, right? Yep. Nobody's talking about that yet. Nobody's talking about that. Yet some of these roles are being devolved to the states. The role of the National Assembly is this. Well, and when you look at the fact that the National Assembly, you have former governors and all of this from the executive branch now, how would that influence things?
Well, thank God that we do not have as much former governors as we had in the 9th Assembly, in this 10th Assembly. But the problem is that we have more of newcomers. And that's a problem because newcomers are meant to observe and learn the proceedings.
At least for 1 year.
At least. So that will slow down the pace of things if manipulation is much. But if not, then it's supposed to make things move faster because they are learning. The experienced ones will just be run. That means we have fewer people to do the real work the next couple of months. So it's a two-way thing, but I expect the latter to be this case because those who are experienced, like the former Senate president, will still be in the Senate. We expect him to play that fatherly role to guide the current Senate president where we may be going astray. Like, guy, if in another country, there's no way you will be elected above me. But because we are in Nigeria and we do everything by zoning, that's the more reason why I had to go step down, because people will raise eyebrow seeing the Senate president and the vice president coming from the same region. So that's the more reason why you are there. He should be telling him, but we can do things this way, and that way, being a guide. That would help. That's the role I expect him to play, especially going by the controversial nature of his own emergence as well, you know, which we saw Richard Sokorocha throwing a jibe at him the other day. We were both on the field contesting presidential election. I didn't know you were maneuvering at the background to return back to the Senate. So that's just by the way, but we expect the 10th Assembly to really have focus on the things that we want to do. Civil society organizations too shouldn't leave that to them. You know, most times they focus on the executive policies. They forget the legislature. They should also be looking at the legislature to see what they are doing. The other day, somebody called me and was asking, trying to interview me on the State Assembly and how people are not aware of what they do. And I said, well, people cannot be aware because the media, for instance, do not cover the activities the way we cover the federal. And they are closer to us. If they know that we are looking into their activities, they will stop being rubber stamped to the governors or always do the governor's bid. But we don't pay attention to them. So we allow them to do whatever they like. So people should beam the searchlight into the legislative arm, both at the national and the state level, so that they will know that people are watching them. If you observe, any proceeding that will go live, they are always conscious of what they do. But when they send away the cameras, they behave anyhow. That is when esprit de corps will come in and we just see them smiling, they've agreed. But when the cameras are there, we have enough people at the gallery observing, they would be conscious that people are watching me, especially people from my constituency. They know the right thing to do. It's just that they allow personal interest to override that sense of responsibility that is expected from them.
Well, let's do a comparison right now of 8th Assembly, 9th Assembly, and what kind of coloration we should be expecting from the 10th Assembly. On one hand, we saw the 8th Assembly and the kind of altercations and face-off they had with the executive. The executive, at some point in time, it was almost like the legislative body, the 8th Assembly, was blamed, for a less than optimal performance. And we saw the 9th Assembly. We've talked about the concept of being a rubber stamp, legislative body right now. Some people are asking, okay, so where do we go? What direction do we go? What is best for this country? And what should the 10th Assembly be composed of with regards to how they relate with the executive?
The 10th Assembly is supposed to look at both and pick out the benefits from the way, from what they can learn from the two assemblies. You know, why the 8th Assembly received that much backlash was because of the way and manner. Let's even forget about how the leadership emerged. But the way and manner they carried out the legislative activity. You know, Senate presided over by the ruling party, acting as opposition to the ruling party. That is aberration. It's not the global practice, it's against it. That's what created the backlash. And at the level of the executive, when they now decide to maybe pass a legislation, you now find a situation where the president will also refuse to sign. And at the end, who suffered? The people. Now, the one that now cooperated, of course, went, they got carried away with the cooperation. And of course, the Senate president even saying that, well, whatever they've decided that anything that comes from the president, they were going to approve so that the government. But they had one significant achievement, or let me say, there's a major one anyway. The budget cycle. During the 8th Assembly, the budget will not be signed until May. And businesses will be hanging. The economy was not really doing well because they don't know what is going to happen. And of course, that was the era of noise about budget padding and all of that. But the 9th Assembly looked at that, improved upon it. We started having the budget being signed in December. You understand? The only area where it's not their fault, they passed the budget, is the executive that refused to implement up to optimal level, which the people expect. But they have been passing the budget in due time. Now they've made significant legislation where we still have problem of implementation, the PIA, the Electoral Act, and all of those significant legislation. They are the ones that passed the electrical, what is it called, constitutional amendment. They are the ones that even passed the Electrical Act, as well as that of even the student loan. So all these things are part of their own achievements. But, and of course, the presidents have also been looking at it. He has also been signing those things, unlike when they were rivalry. So we do not expect rivalry between the executive and the 10th Assembly. But we do not expect the 10th Assembly to be, to not do their own due diligence as regards the policies that is being brought for them, towards them to look at, or they should also not forget their oversight function. You know, much emphasis is being given to appropriation and legislation. The oversight, they're only interested in oversight when they have something to get from it. That is not right. You are supposed to do it. That is why we have projects not being implemented, because those who are supposed to supervise the projects are busy doing other things at the chamber. So these are what we expect, or personally I expect from the 10th Assembly. You know, let there be an improvement, especially when you have majority of newcomers. Let the experienced one teach them the right things so that they too will not carry on the culture of bad things to the next assembly. So when they learn the right thing, being the majority now, they will begin to do the right thing. We have a robust debate on policies. We have quality scrutiny and representation across board. That's what Nigerians expect from the 10th Assembly. And
Okay.
it will be a welcome development if they can do that.
I want to go to the president, and he was inaugurating the NEC yesterday, and he had this to say. He said, we must harness the growth potential of Nigeria and bring about serious development to bring us from a potential nation to pragmatic economic development. He said, I cannot overemphasize this. It is also reassuring to know that the populace, members of this country, are behind us. They want reforms, and they want it quick to have a meaningful impact in their lives. Now, looking at this, and then the stigma, I'll call it the stigma in quote now, the National Assembly has in terms of, their operations, their remunerations, and all of that. That's a gap between the vision. The president has a clear vision. Is the National Assembly equipped to deliver? Rapidly. We have seen how the executive branch has moved so rapidly in just about 2 weeks. Is the National Assembly equipped to meet these challenges?
There's a reason why Akpabio and Abbas were insisted upon. And I want to believe it is to achieve what we are just saying. Because when you don't have people keying into that vision, the agenda, the overall agenda, there will be problem. Now you have common agenda with people who are like minds to run it. It is expected of Akpabio and Abbas to now carry the National Assembly along to help them flow in the vision. People will not shout rubber stamp if they do the right thing.
Articulation.
You understand? Exactly, that's the word. When they see that at play, nobody will shout rubber stamp. But when they now begin to see personal interests, reigning supreme, they will shout rubber stamp. You understand? That is what is expected of Akpabio now, as well as Abbas. Abbas especially because he has multitude to deal with, 359 individuals to really carry along compared to 108 that Akpabio has to deal with. So these are things they know they have huge responsibility upon them. And I think that I have to dig into the profile of Abbas. I now begin to understand. You need someone with a temperate mindset, that mature sense of responsibility that people can respect, that when he says, please, fellow honorables, let's do this thing this way, they will see reason rather than antagonize. That is what I see in his personality, and it's good for that office because he will be able to. That was what Gbajabi Amila used to carry that house along. Now, Akpabio too is someone that can really understand politics.
Calculating.
Yes.
Smooth.
He was a former governor. The former governors, he knows how to speak to them. He has been a legislator. He knows how to speak to them. He was a former minister. Those who are former ministers in that chamber, he knows the language to speak to them. So we understand how the executive behave and how the legislative behave, as well as how the component units, the subnational governments, how they also behave.
He's also a lawyer.
And he's also a lawyer, so we understand the proceeding. So it makes him, much expectation is on him. So he is expected to deliver. For him to now be listening, and they saw the template that the executive had already, put on ground. They are supposed to fall in line and key into it.
Can they match the tempo?
They will, or they should. Let me use that.
Because the tempo, what we saw in 2 weeks.
You understand? They should be able to match with the tempo. We are seeing an era of seriousness in government, and of course, he mentioned reforms. Reforms will need legislative backing, exactly. And that is where they come in. That's where it concerns them. That when the legal framework is being brought before them, they should look at it and not begin to play politics. This is not the time to be saying, no, this does not favor my region. It's not about region now. It's about the nation. It is Nigerian first. That is what all of them, the entire 469 of them, should be thinking of, not region. Because you are saying your region now because you are there today. What if you leave the place tomorrow? But whatever you do today that affects everybody is what the people will be talking about. That is what should be in their spines. And I like the way they give them orientation and the way the president had met with them even before their inauguration to really sell this agenda to them. Come, please, I beg you. It was even appealing. That was why the Labour Party man said he never knew this man was this prepared, and of course, members of his party were kind of saying, are you going to compromise for us or something? But he saw a different person from the one that is ad hoc. You understand? So I expect them to now take advantage and give him that sense of that benefit of the doubt. Well, a lot may have been said about you, but what you are saying now is a bit different. Okay, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. I will cooperate. Let's see the policies. Let's see how we can work around it. and let's put the nation first.
Would you be surprised to hear of defections within the National Assembly?
I wouldn't be surprised, but I do not expect it. Because it doesn't matter the party you are. It's about what you do as an officer, as a legislature. That is what matters. That is what I expect them to do. You don't have to be a member of the APC to give quality legislation or to cooperate with the executive. You don't have to. Stay where you are and just do the right thing. It is Nigeria first.
Considering, the behavior of politicians.
And that's why I said I wouldn't be surprised. I'm just saying that at least for once, let us just do things differently. That's for once. Because if the president is not dividing you along party line, if he has called all of you together, he could have called the APC caucus alone. But he called everybody. So that means he sees everybody as the same. Let them follow that template.
Isn't it also funny how nobody largely is talking about the power of recall any longer as to how to punish any legislature that is not delivering as the people would expect?
Because it has been proven that even though it's there in the law, the previous attempt had failed. It's so difficult to achieve.
So we just abandon it, is that it?
And that is where the problem lies. It's just it's the level of our democracy. So rather than focusing on recall, focus on the process of emergence.
Okay.
Rather than electing someone,
pay attention to
the process. Yeah. You understand how the primary is done at the election. Look at them very well and vote for the right person. Don't vote out of sentiments. Don't vote for a stranger in the name of a party affiliation or sentiments. You understand? A lot of that happened, and you see some of them would just be there and people would not be complaining. We didn't even know who is. Like the man representing Etiosa, until he was declared the winner, people did not know him. And somebody said, I said, they are not serious. Did they not see the poster?
Before.
Or didn't they know their residents? They know one that is on the ballot and the party is representing. Is Etiosa a village? That is a place populated by elites. So why didn't they vote differently, or did they vote and the vote was counted for somebody else? Well, they should not even make noise. That is the man that will represent them for the next 4 years.
Mr. Basijo Kwadesumbo, thank you so much. We hope that Nigerians pay closer attention.
Exactly, that's what we need now.
Yes, thank you so very much for talking to us.
It's always a pleasure.
120. That's a wrap for you today on the show. Do join us again Monday morning. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now. You are chairman as you are chapter. Yeah. What does the federal authorities have to do in terms of tertiary education?
The implication is that your development is attached to the quality of education given to the citizen. Unless there is a deliberate policy change to refocus on education. Tell me which aspects of the economy that is not attached to education.
Hello viewer, this is to notify you that BCOS Television and Go TV will now be on channel 134 from the 19th of April 2023. Thank you. BCOS Television, a media giant in a class of its own.
Let's enjoy this happy day.